guys, so today we're gonna do a really fun video, and it is my very first deep dive into the reader rewind for myself. And we're starting with probably one of my least favorite years, and that is 2010. So let's go ahead and get started. So 2010 was a very different year for me. Through the course of this reader rewind, you will hear all sorts of things like the pop culture stuff that I was into that year, the books I was reading, the music I was listening to, how old I was, just some background as to me that year, and it'll be interesting to say the least. So in 2010, I was a sophomore in high school. I was 16, or no, I guess I would have been 15. Anyway, I was 15, didn't know what I was doing, was really like a good student, A's and B's all through high school, especially sophomore year. I played for the volleyball team, which was not hard. I went to a high school that only had 100 kids. So basically, if you were breathing, could stand up on two legs, and wanted to be part of the team, you could. I also had a part-time job working at the local zoo. I had been a volunteer in years past, and the volunteer coordinator saw a spot open up that he thought I would be excellent at. Didn't tell me, and basically got the job for me, and at a meeting announced, hey, you have a job working in the butterfly house. You start next week. And I was terrified of butterflies at the time, so that was interesting. Since then, I am not scared of butterflies anymore, but that's what happens when you work with butterflies for 5 years. You just kind of get over it. As far as books that I was reading at the time, I'm gonna sound, one, like a stereotypical teenager, and two, nothing like a stereotypical teenager. So my favorite books were all over the place. I was reading the Mortal Instruments series. I only got through the first 3, I think, and I don't even think I got through them all that year. But I was absolutely garbage for those books. I remember all of my friends were reading Twilight, and I wanted nothing to do with that. I was all in on the Mortal Instruments series. I absolutely loved them. Now, looking back on it, I don't think I would like those books nearly as much as I did back then. But on the flip side of that, my other favorite books from that year, I read War of the Worlds, Animal Farm, Count of Monte Cristo, and then the kind of most surprising of all, I read the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So I am definitely what you would have considered a nerd in high school. That's totally fine. I don't care. I was perfectly fine carrying that moniker. Didn't bother me any. But I had a lot of downtime for reading because I didn't really hang out with anybody. I am an only child, so I had a lot of spare time at home as well. And apparently, for some reason, I thought reading classics would be a good idea. And I absolutely loved them, but as I've gotten older, I have liked them less and less. But in high school, big fan. Those were the ones that I remember reading in 2010. I'm sure I read a bunch more, but those kind of shaped my high school experience because I read a bunch of them in high school, and now that I'm 26, I have no interest. But anyway, we're not talking about it right now. The movies that I was watching in 2010, Harry Potter, however many of them had come out at that point, I absolutely loved those movies. Those are some of my favorite movies of all time. Lord of the Rings, I had just seen the movies, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna read the books. They both are awesome in their own right. I think I actually like the movies a little bit better just because I get that cinematic like wow factor, and because I watched them first and then read the books later, so that kind of plays an influence in that. Some of my other favorite movies were Help and Yellow Submarine, both by the Beatles. I we'll just go ahead and segue into music. I had a huge obsession with the Beatles. I still do. I have a healthy respect for their music, but in high school, I was like a crazed fanatic. I listened to their music at any time I could. I actually had a Volkswagen Beetle, and I had like 3 or 4 of their CDs in my car at all times. I lived, breathed, slept, whatever, the Beatles. And those 2 movies, I would actually watch, like, alternately. I would watch them before I would go to bed. It was very strongly an obsession. Some other music people that I loved at the time were the Monkees, which if you've never heard of them, you definitely need to go look them up. They were the ones that actually originally sang I'm a Believer, not Smash Mouth. I know Shrek fans will find that shocking, but they're a great band. I actually share a birthday with 2 of their members, Mike Nesmith and Davy Jones. They are both born on December 30th. I am as well. Anything 80s, like rock, pop, so Def Leppard, Van Halen. I also liked Wham, Pet Shop Boys, stuff like that. I loved their music. And I also really liked Irish folk music. I was super weird, like, and I still am. I still love Irish folk music, but like, I had very strong convictions in 2010 about the things I liked, and I'm not sure why I picked those as the things that I liked, but I did anyway. If I went back and looked at some of the things that I did in 2010 that were like important things in my life, I did have, or I guess I had turned, yeah, I was already 16 because it's 2020 now and I'm turning 27 at the end of the year. Yikes. Anyway, so I was 16. So I actually got my learner's permit this year. I did not get it when I was 15 just because I was absolutely petrified of driving. But I did have a Volkswagen Beetle that I loved very, very much. And so it definitely got used and abused. But I also had an Alice in Wonderland themed birthday party because that was one of my favorite Disney movies at the time. We went all out. I dressed as Alice. I had everybody that came to the party dressed as different Alice in Wonderland characters. We had a tea party. It was, just to hear myself talk about it, I get kind of embarrassed a little bit. But honestly, it was one of my favorite birthday parties I've ever had, especially because 16-year-olds usually don't have birthday parties or they like go out with friends or family members. But I wanted a last big hoorah, and I definitely went out in style. That was also the year that I was part of the National Honor Society for the first time. I did not hold any major office at all, but it was something that I was really striving towards, and I was very excited and super proud of myself that I accomplished that goal. And 2010 is also the year that I kind of started reading again. I know I was saying that I read all these different series and all these classics, and then I got a lot of reading just everywhere. And I think it was because in 2009, I didn't really read a whole lot. Reading was not a top priority for me. 2009 was just not a great year. 2010 was a little bit better, but it wasn't a stellar year. But anyway, I had really gotten back into reading in 2010. I still only read I want to say it was 25 books over the total year, which is fantastic, don't get me wrong. But compared to numbers like last year where I think I read 97, 25 is not a lot. But it did kind of open my eyes to, I don't have to read what everybody else around me is reading just because that's what's popular. I can read what I want, I can enjoy myself, and it really is a good way to escape reality, especially if your reality is stressful. It is a healthy, good way to escape and give yourself a break, and that was something that I definitely had to learn over the course of 2010, and overall that year was okay. Just a lot of growing, a lot of learning, especially at 16 years old. You're gonna learn, you're gonna develop, just everything's gonna change, and you don't really understand it until you're in the middle of it. So yeah, this video kind of actually ended up being a little bit more difficult to film than I thought. I thought it would be this fun, goofy, like, ooh, let's just make fun of the weird things that I liked in 2010. But I don't know, I definitely want to be a little bit more real with you all about this, or not real, but more transparent. I'm always very real. I always tell you my personal opinions about things. I don't sugarcoat anything, but I don't always give my total personal like background on things. And I don't like bringing history into discussions, but that's kind of what these videos are about. So I hope that you all liked this jumbled mess. I'm sure I was all over the place because I don't write scripts for things. If I write a script, I'm gonna veer off of it anyway. Oh, speaking of scripts, 2010, I was in my first play. How did I forget that? I was in Harvey at school, and I absolutely loved it. I only had like 10 lines. I was at the very beginning of the play, and then I didn't have anything else to do. But going to all the rehearsals and like watching everybody run through their lines and getting the script and just being a part of all that was so much fun. And that is something I tremendously miss because I lived for being in drama and I wish I had stuck with it. But that was a super cool experience and I really, really loved it. And that will become more and more apparent the more years I get into this. Unfortunately, 2013, I think is going to be the end of that because I was not in a play that year and I haven't been since. But 2012 is going to be a good one to watch. So this is the end of 2010. If you all would like to share some things that were going on in your life in 2010, like how old you were, if you were in school, if you had gotten your first job, if you were 5 years old, and it's going to make me feel super old. Just anything that you would like to share down below. Maybe some books that you read in 2010 as well. That would be cool. Tell me down in the comments below. I love talking to you all. It's always a fun experience. If you all want pretty nails like mine, I finally redid my nails, guys, and they look so good. My Color Street link is down below. That is how I fund this channel and it fuels my reading addiction. Please do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all next time. Bye!